So here is part 2 of Creepypasta reading. I'm going to try to fit the rest of them, the last 6 in here. So, as the first one, if you are sensitive to when people talk about suicide, murder, basically death, or sensitive to random topics, this is not the video for you. And those are the reasons why I'm putting this under mature content. Don't worry, I just feel that's what it needs to be. So, they're not really kid appropriate. So we're going to start with Kagekao, aka Shadowface, when translated into English. I'll be right back. These are on Wattpad, so there you go. So you know where I'm getting them from. Mark Stein looked up at the night sky. He was standing on the roof of an apartment building, 4 stories up. Sometimes Mark just liked to stay up there and reflect. It was a quiet, peaceful place. Looking down, he could see the normal hustle and bustle of the city. But if you looked up, you could see the beautiful sky, and sometimes they were filled with the moon and some stars. Mark walked along the border of the roof. That helped him keep from falling to his death. It was pretty much... Wait a minute, I went too far. Oh no, I lost it. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, there we go. It was pretty late, so he should be getting back down to his apartment soon. Then he saw something waving in the wind a few meters away. Mark walked over to it and picked it up. And in today's newspaper, on the front said, "Young man found dead in the woods." Earlier, John Parker, age 20, found dead near Northern Woods. His family stated that he had never had any real enemies, but was a bit of a troublemaker. Still, they did not know who would want him dead. His death became to be caused by blood loss. The scars seemed to be from a large animal, but this was later found to be caused as a symbol was found carved on his forehead. The symbol was Mark put the paper down where he found it. He did not want an article like that ruining his night. He walked along the border again with his arms on it. He looked up at the sky. 20 years. So young. He felt so sorry for the kid. He himself was nearly 30, and he thought that man would never be able to know that his life was gone. Mark tried to get it out of his head. He didn't want to get depressed. Without knowing, Mark's hand bumped into an empty cardboard box that was on the edge. He tried to catch it, but it was too late. It was sent falling down the street. It was odd. He didn't see any cars. Only a lonely person along the sidewalk. "Hey, watch out," he called, but it was too late. The box fell on the person's head, and at least it was an empty box. He was about to call down and apologize, but what happened next made him freeze. The person who was on the sidewalk looked up. He had on a black hoodie and a black and white scarf. That, of course, would not have made him freeze. The person in particular, the mask, half black and half a luminous white. He managed to get his voice and was going to shout his apologies. Maybe this guy came from a strange party or something, or when he realized, again, froze by what he saw. The man saw something that Mark could not hear, and then jumped onto the wall. He began climbing up the side of the building, similar to a side of a spider or some lizard. Mark was frozen, mouth open, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. This man, no, monster, reached the top of the building and crouched on the border of the edge. Mark now saw he was able to climb buildings so easily. He was wearing white gloves, but they were long, black, cat-like claws extending from each finger through the glove, and he saw the mask had a face on it, but only half a face. On the white side, there was a shape of an angry-looking eye and a mouth curved into a frown. They stared at each other, the only few seconds, but For Mark, it felt like an eternity. There was something strange happening. The monster's mask changed. The angry mouth and eye disappeared. On the black side of the mask appeared happy eye and strange smile. Do you want to play? Mark screamed and ran towards the door leading out of the building. He prayed that the monster wasn't going to follow him. He panted and he leaned into the door to keep it closed. After a while, he wandered off. He wondered if the monster was still there, and why didn't it force the door open? He had no idea. But there was something odd about the way he said it. He seemed happy and playful, but also angry and malicious. He gathered his courage and decided to open the door, putting one hand on the knob. He took a deep breath and slowly opened it. Mark expected to find himself face to face with the odd mask. Instead, the monster was still there, where he'd left him, sitting on the edge of the roof and smiling with that odd but somewhat malicious smile. And the monster again said, "Do you want to play?" "I want you to play." Mark slammed the door again. His legs fell from beneath him, and he sat on the floor. He didn't like the way the monster said those things to him. He sat there for a while, trying to make sense of what was happening, but it was late. Maybe he fell asleep on the roof and was having a nightmare. He decided to check one more time. Mark opened the door slowly. Part of him said that the monster would be in the same spot, and another part of him told him that he would be right next to the door, claws unshed, ready to tear him. He was wrong. The monster was gone. There was nothing but the lights of the city and the cars driving. He let out a sigh of relief. It was just a dream. The door slammed in his face. He made a sound of pain as the metal door whacked him on the forehead. Mark rubbed his head and fell to the ground. "What the hell was that?" he shouted, to no one in particular. He didn't close the door. Even if he did, he wasn't that clumsy. And the wind wasn't strong enough to close it. He told himself maybe it was just a freak gust of wind, but his mind quickly disagreed when he heard the laughing again. The noise came from right outside the door. Just a little above it, the monster was standing on top of it. Mark woke up confused in his apartment in his bed, and he looked around to make sure it was really his own place. He sighed again. It must have all been a dream. One of those odd dreams where you could have sworn it was real because it felt so real, but then you realize it must have been a dream because it was so odd. Mark laughed to himself as the monsters, they don't really exist. A sudden pain on his forehead appeared, which made him stop. Maybe it was real, and he didn't remember coming back. Mark quickly dismissed the idea maybe he had fallen down in his sleep and then gotten back up, and maybe those things didn't happen. Mark got up and went to the fridge to grab a drink. He opened a carton of juice to have for breakfast. He tilted the carton to pour some juice out when he realized there was a gash in the side of the carton. So when it tilted, the juice didn't reach the top, but instead spilt out the gash. Then again, there was nothing. I will be right back. There it was again. He came to his apartment and he turned around quickly, scanning the room for the monster, but then he stopped, realizing how paranoid and foolish he was being. He had obviously been imagining the cut in the carton. His girlfriend could have done that. They had recently gotten into a fight. He cleaned up the mess and decided he wasn't going to have any breakfast. He didn't really feel like eating. He was worried about how he was going to make it up to his girlfriend, Beatrice. He loved her and wanted to make her understand how much he loved her. He turned on the television and watched it for a couple hours, forgetting his troubles. It was now noon. He got up and walked to the kitchen, leaving the television on. He opened the cabinet that he kept the alcohol in. Taking a bottle of beer, he poured some into a glass, then nearly dropped the bottle when he saw it wasn't beer. It was just a plain water. He frowned and drank it a little bit to check. It was just a plain water. He started to get angry and grabbed another bottle and another. Their contents were replaced with normal water. He got really angry. But there it was again, that evil laugh. Mark jumped up, and he told himself again and again he had been imagining it. He was just so paranoid. His dream felt so real. Beatrice could have been doing this. There was no monster. He dug out the cabinet and see if there was anything else in there. And in the back there were 2 bottles of wine and 1 champagne. But he saved that for when Beatrice forgave him. He saw the bottles were about too close to the cabinet. When he did a double take, one of the bottles were missing. Beatrice could have done that too. I'll be right back. The laughter had come from the living room, where the television was on. He knew he hadn't imagined this at the time. The laughter was real. He closed the cabinet and ran into the room. Sure enough, there was a monster sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine and watching the television that had been left on. The monster paused and looked up at Mark, smiling. It picked up the wine bottle in one hand and shook it towards him. Wine? Mark paused, staring at the monster, and quickly snapped out of it and ran back to the kitchen quickly as he could. It was real, and he really expected the monster was going to get up and kill him, or eat him, because that's what monsters do. But the monster remained there. He could hear it laughing at him. Mark was afraid. He had to get out of this place, out of his life. He looked up and around the kitchen for something. Panicking, he grabbed the nearest knife he could, ran back into the living room ready to fight, but the monster was gone. There was no trace of evidence. The missing bottle of wine in the wine glass. He tensed up. Maybe he was going crazy. No. I'm not going crazy. It happened. It won't happen. It can't. I won't let it. He went back to the kitchen and put the knife away. He walked back into the living room and on the couch, picking up the remote, turned off the television to think, maybe I'm hallucinating. Maybe I am going crazy. Maybe because I'm depressed because Beatrice is mad at me. The strange dream that got mixed to this. Mark got up and grabbed his phone to call her. He dialed her number and waited for her to pick up. Mark was so excited when he was about to make up to her. He didn't notice her slip through the window and watch him. Hey, Beatrice, it's me. I'm sorry we had a fight. No, I'm really sorry. I promise, I swear I'll make it up. He set the phone down. She had hung up. Only did he see something in the corner of his eyes. It's going to make it up to her. I'm going to make it up to her, he told himself, grabbing his jacket and putting it on. I'm going to apologize in person. Mark walked quickly, rehearsing what he was going to say. The entire time walking, he always felt like someone was following him. Mark reached her house, and on the front steps he was afraid. He was afraid she wouldn't forgive him and would just break up with him. He reached out his fist to knock, but quickly drew back. He was afraid. Mark sighed and swore under his breath, telling himself he was a coward. He turned around and walked away, but noticed that laugh right behind him, followed by the sound of an opening door. That's the end of that one. Next on this list, Eyeless Jack. Okay. I think this is the right story. If not, you guys are going to have to tell me what it's about. I think I'm going to read these in a different way. I'll be right back once I figure out what that way is. So I've decided I'm going to go on to Wiki Fandom, and I'm going to look them up, and I'm going to tell you about them. And then you guys can read the stories for yourself if you want. I'm going to tell you just the origin that they have here, because on here, they have little origins. Honestly, it's going to make the video go quicker, so I can finish this, and we can start another project. And they're getting really sad. I don't understand why they're so sad. Okay. The origin for this one. A man named Mitch, this is Eyeless Jack. Mitch moves in with his brother Edwin at his house, which is foreclosed. A week later, Mitch wakes up to a large gash on his cheek. After going to the hospital, the doctor reveals that Mitch's left kidney had been surgically removed overnight. Around midnight, Mitch wakes up to see Eyeless Jack over his bed, wearing a blue mask with a black liquid dripping from empty eye sockets. Mitch manages to grab his camera and take a picture before Jack attacks. Clawing at his chest, Mitch escapes and flees into the woods, where he is tripped and is knocked unconscious. When he awakes in the hospital, it's revealed to him that Edwin had been killed the previous night. His parents drive him to the house to collect his belongings. When he enters, he sees Edwin's corpse and small objects lying next to it. He observes it, and it finds that his kidney had a bite taken out of it, covered in black substance. So, Creepypasta. This one, Eyeless Jack, is a muscular humanoid figure dressed in all black and a hoodie and dark jeans. He dons on a deep blue mask with a large black empty eye sockets, the strange liquid substance that comes out of his mask. He also eats people's kidneys. So, he's also known as EJ. Elizabeth loves this story. I don't know why. Next on this list of lovely people, Laughing Jill. So, Laughing Jill is the gender-bent version of Laughing Jack. She was once a girl's best friend, but her friend was sent to the church. Everything Jill loved had disappeared, followed her through this story, making her friend, losing him, and going insane. Mary was a lonely child. Even though she was rich, she was unhappy. Her father worked as an entrepreneur, and her mother was an alcoholic. She was a smart girl, but she hated it. She wanted to be liked like other normal kids, but she couldn't. One Christmas, her parents bought her a Laughing Jill in the box. She cranked it up. Jill popped out, and the minute they talked to each other, they became best friends. Due to this, Mary became rude to her parents, including Jill. Jill would prank her parents, and Mary would be blamed for. However, Mary would tell them it was Laughing Jill who did the pranks, but they thought she was going crazy. This continued for a while until Mary's parents decided to send Mary to a church so that she would forget about Jill. Ever since she left, Laughing Jill became upset and started to lose her color. After a year, Mary comes back for Christmas. She wasn't excited to see her parents, only Jill. She still remembered her because she pretends she thinks Jill is a demon. Mary found Laughing Jill and saw she changed. Mary asked Jill why and explained, but after finishing her explanation, Mary was killed. Jill saw that Mary's mother had killed her, had a gun in her hand, and she immediately snapped. Later that night, Jill killed her mother, father, and the nuns. That's deep. What the heck? Okay, that happened. Okay. Nurse Anne. Nurse Anne, full name for the creepypasta is Anne Leucemia, or otherwise commonly known as Nurse Anne, has an unknown origin story, but she is known to be a murderous nurse and is one of the most recognizable female creepypastas in the fandom. Nurse Anne doesn't actually have an official creepypasta backstory, or so her backstory is currently unknown. But her appearance is she is wears an unpractical nurse outfit that reaches her thighs, and the color of her outfit is black because she is an emotional person who likes the color black. She wears long gloves, and her entire body is covered in stitches. She has her right eye missing, along with her left eye being pure red with a black pupil, and she has dark rings under her eyes. She wears a mouth mask along with a hat having the same symbol of a plus sign on her red hair. And there's artwork here. You guys want to see it? Nurse Anne, can you see it? So she doesn't really have a backstory. How long ago was this made? She doesn't have a backstory. That's okay. Dollmaker. If you actually want me to read the full stories for these, you can tell me in the comments. So, I would actually read them. I cannot find Dollmaker. My search is going to be full of creepypastas. Here's one. Okay. So there once was a man who had beautiful dolls of all shapes and sizes. He even made life-size dolls. Many requested their expenses of these exquisite dolls, and thought that the dolls would brought the humble man would have brought him a lot of money. He lived modestly with his young son Vine. The young boy was fascinated by his father's work. The doll parts and finished dolls filled the home. Each was unique in their own beautiful way, and they had beautiful personalities. Vine would watch in fascination as his father would paint the delicate lips upon their pale faces. He wanted to be like his father someday and create gorgeous artwork. One day, a rich businessman requested an ornate life-size doll from the humble dollmaker. He went by the name Gear. However, the dollmaker refused to make a doll upon discovering Gear was a crooked and wanted the doll for disgusting means. Gear grew enraged at the maker's refusal, and so enraged that he hired the arms to get rid of the dollmaker. The dollmaker's home was set ablaze. He sacrificed himself to save his son from the flames. Vine watched in horror and dismay as his father burned before him. His tears only evaporated from the heat as he watched the home turn to rubble, to dust. He sobbed over the remains of his father, surrounded by charred remnants of the house, of the beautiful ornate dolls. They were now melted, distorted, horribly disfigured. What there once were, but Vine searched through the wreckage with his tiny hands, trying to find what may have survived. In the end, all he could find was a life-size pink glass doll eye. He kept it in his hand and kept it close to his heart. His messy black locks filling his face, the eyes was all he had left. The child was a mere age 9 when he watched everything happen as it was destroyed in an instant. Unfortunately, the terrors were never gotten over by the child. Oh my word. Movie. So he is the doll maker, is what this says. So I will be right back. And last, but certainly not least, SCP-073, aka Kane. That is what May told me. That's what she has written there. So, the full name of this character is unknown, but his alias is 703, Kane. So, SCP-073 is a male cyborg-like entity whose arms, legs, and spine and shoulders are replaced entirely with unknown metals. On its forehead is a mysterious symbol of a Sumerian origin. When asked about the symbol, 073 will become hesitant and refuse to answer. He behaves like a normal human being, living in a cell complete with everyday furnishings and eating and drinking regularly, though it's required a carnivore diet. When SCP-073 is attacked, any damage it sustains recoils back on its attacker whilst 073 is unharmed, likely a property obtained from the metal's composition. As a result, tests to retrieve tissue samples proves fruitless. Any soil life within a 20-meter radius of SCP-073 begins to die. It stands on grass and it starts to become barren, leaving nothing but dirt and rocks. Meanwhile, as SCP-073 touches materials derived from plants, it begins to rot and disintegrate. That's neat. So that is SCP-073. So, there's that. I will see you guys later. Bye!